This Amateur Radio Roundtable is brought to you in part by Icom America. All right, welcome everybody. Hey, today is June the 19th. Boy, time flies, man. June the 19th. We welcome everybody watching the show tonight. If you're a first time visitor out here tonight, hey, put in the chat room that this is your first time. I'd like to see how many new people maybe join us tonight. We had our second weekly Roundtable Net on tonight before the show. We had about 25 check-ins, and 40 meters was terrible. Let me tell you, it was really, really bad, but we had 25 check-ins. Hey, we're on WBCQ, International Shortwave Station, a very famous shortwave station up in Monticello, Maine. We're on 5130, and we've got listeners in various countries. And if you're listening out there on shortwave, send us an email to tom@w5kub.com and let us know where you are and how you're hearing us. Well, we got our special guys on here again tonight. We got Dave Kessler with us, KE0OG, and Martin F. Jew, founder of MFJ, is with us again tonight. Martin is K5FLU. And we've got Riley Hollingsworth with us. Now, Riley, your call is, don't tell me, K4ZDH, is that right?
That's it.
All right, I got it. Okay, I remembered it. Okay, so, hey, we're going to have a good show tonight, and we're going to open the phone lines up. In a little while, we're going to talk ham radio. We're going to talk about your first radio, and we're going to talk about growing up in ham radio and differences between then and now. And, back then, things were pretty bad. I don't know about you, Martin, but when I went to school, I had to walk to school. It was uphill both ways.
Oh, I had snow each direction.
Yeah, it snowed.
Okay.
So, yeah, and hey, in a shack here, let me show you something. In a studio, let me change the camera shot. Look at there. We got Walter.
That's a scary thought.
We got Walter in here with us. Walter's in the chat room there. You guys better behave or he'll kick you.
That's right.
He doesn't take any
stuff
off anybody. All right. How you been doing this week?
Been doing great. Had a good week last week. I guess it was a week and a half ago on Saturday was the Memorial Ships Weekend, where all the various ships like the USS Iowa and battleships and other kinds of ships around the nation had a weekend where people could work those ships. In Montrose, Colorado, we're rather landlocked here, so we don't have any ships, but there was a USS Montrose that was named after the county. And so we have a memorial consisting of the ship's bell, a plaque, some photographs, and inside the city hall they've got a model of the ship and so on. And so we felt we would be able to join the Memorial Ship Weekend. All we had to do was be in sight of the memorial. So our club, the Montrose Amateur Radio Club, in conjunction with the local chapter of the American Legion Radio Club, put together an event, special event station, and we had the call sign K0P. It turns out that the call sign for the ship was KPPP originally, so K0P. We had over 500 contacts, and I put a little video together to sort of commemorate that. It's 2 minutes that shows what we were doing to remember the men. There weren't men and women back then, but men, and it was a forward attack transport. The ship was a Liberty ship, and it carried a contingent of Marines with all their equipment, and it even saw service in Korea and Vietnam. So that's what we've got in that video that I sent you there. So,
all right, let's take a look at it now. You guys aren't going to hear the audio. The remote guests probably won't hear the audio, but everybody else is. So here we go.
CQ, this is the USS Montrose Memorial, November 0 Papa, calling CQ. Kilo 5, Lima Sierra uniform. Boy, you are 5'9" and a little bit more.
All right. Hey, that was a cool video there. And hey, is that sponsored by the American Legion?
The American Legion has an amateur radio club associated with it, and this was post 73 of that club. And they were one of the sponsors. The other sponsor was the Montrose Amateur Radio Club. And there were lots of other ships on the air, too. Ships and even submarines. I worked a submarine.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. And my heart has a special place for the vets here and this type thing. And the American Legion there, I was a member of the VFW, but I haven't renewed in a while, but I probably should. But we need to really support our vets out there.
Yes.
Cool video.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
So, hey, let's just jump real quick, and everybody's going to stick around. Nobody's leaving right now. Let's jump over to Riley, and we get some Ask Riley questions occasionally, where people have a question, and they'd like to hear from somebody from the FCC that knew something, and we think that's Riley. So, Riley, what kind of question do you have tonight you're going to answer? And you're not going to go away. You're going to talk to us about your first rig, too, later.
Yeah. And if I can't find the answer, I'll find somebody who does.
Okay.
But the question came in from Dale Cole. If an entity owns amateur equipment, for example, our hospital, and it is set up there for our emergency use, do they need a separate station license aside from our person's license we have as an operator? And Chuck Horvath had answered that correctly, saying no. Ownership of the equipment, just like ownership of a repeater, it is irrelevant, as is the location. The person operating it has to be an amateur radio operator and follow the amateur radio service rules. There's no separate station license required if it happens to be in a hospital or an office building, wherever. The important thing is you have to follow the amateur rules, and it can't be used for business purposes. That's the long and short of that. And that's the only question I saw. Rachel's got a couple more pending. Haven't gotten answers back yet.
Okay. Well, Riley, you know, one of the things, and I kind of read up on it too, and from just my little bit of knowledge of the FCC over the years, I know that piece of paper they give you is both an operator permit and a station license, but it's all on one piece of paper.
Right.
So, I don't think you think about the station station license very much, but I guess as long as you have that one piece of paper, you can operate the just about any ham station, right? Even if you don't own it.
Well, if there's a club, you can get a club call sign, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's standards for a club call sign, and club members use it.
Has it always been like that, where one piece of paper is for the station and the operator?
As long as I remember.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, Riley,
one other thing I wanted to mention to Martin. Martin, I've got one of your keyers here. It's the MFJ 492. I've had it for years and years and years, and it's worked flawlessly. But I was talking to you about it one time, probably 8 years ago, and you mentioned that it had the Curtis chip in it. And I remember that. And then I saw on the League News, dated the 15th of June, that Curtis keyer chip developer Jack Curtis, K6KU, is a silent key. And it says here that he was the developer of the groundbreaking Curtis Morse keyer chip. And he grew up here in Bradford, Pennsylvania, which isn't very far away from here at all. And then he developed a couple of other keyers for Morse iambic keyers and so forth. But I remember you had told me that had a Curtis chip in it and just stuck with me all these years.
I remember that.
Well, yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear about Curtis, but you're right. You know, he was the guy who developed a chip to do keyers, the Curtis keyer chip, and we bought the rights for him to do that. But at that point, that manufacturing process had gotten obsolete, and you couldn't build those chips anymore. But he was a pioneer in automatic Morse code keyers. Really good guy.
Well, it says in here that this putting the electronics on an IC chip revolutionized CW keying, and the first Curtis keyer was the 8043 in 1973. Which,
Yeah.
to me, that's not long ago, but it is a long time ago.
It's not very long ago to me either, but yeah, 8043 and then the 8044.
That's what it says, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think I got one of those keyers. You know,
They're everywhere. It said finally the 20-pin 8044 was produced in '86.
But you know, Riley and Martin, I don't know. I guess I was a poor ham back then. I didn't. Well, first of all, growing up in a little town like I grew up in, and Martin, you grew up in a little town, and we didn't have the internet, and there wasn't a ham radio store for 60 miles away, and I didn't know how to get to it. So we didn't get a lot of stuff like that, But I built my first electronic keyer. I used a TV power transformer. I think it had a 12AT7 in it, and it had a relay in it. And it weighed about 25 pounds, but it worked really good. It had a weight control on it and a speed control. And my mom and dad bought me a really nice Vibraplex Deluxe Chrome key for it. And I still got that today, and that key is 50 years old,
Well, Tom, all we had back then was the handbook and some old radio and TV parts.
Yeah, hey, the handbook and TV and radio parts, that's it. So,
I didn't even have a keyer. I had this J44.
J38? Oh, J44. Wow.
But my 44 is right here. It's the one I had when I was 14. Got it at an Army surplus store. And so I still got a lot of contacts on that thing.
Hey, while we're talking about keyers here a minute, Martin, you remember the old automobile car radios, let's say 6-volt or 12-volt, they had a vibrator that plugged into it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It had like a 4-prong vibrator that plugged into it. It was a metal can. And it had a couple uses. When it'd go bad at the TV shop here, I'd get an old vibrator there, and I'd open a can up, and it had this great foam cushion inside it that wrapped around it, and it made a great tube puller. You take that little thing and you just stick it over a tube, and you pull hot tubes out. But the point I was going to make is that vibrator actually, it turned on and off, like thousands of times per minute, and it broke the DC up from your car battery, so you could step it up with a transformer to get the high voltage you needed in a car radio. But if you remember that little vibrator reed in there, if you ever took one apart, Martin, it had a contact on both sides. And I thought, hey, this is just like I need a key. Man, I need a key for my electronic keyer. So I tore one of those up and got that part out of there. And now I've got this contact on both sides and a little arm that sticks out, where I could put my little paddle on there, and I could work it back and forth, But the thing is, that thing was made to vibrate, and boy, if you hit that thing, it'd go bing, 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 it'd go back and forth, So it wasn't great, but that's my experience on homebrew keyers.
Great.
Yeah, that was pretty smart. Yeah, what they did in solid state, they just replaced the contacts with transistors.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
those contacts used to pit and arc, and I mean, they would go bad just like a tube would go bad.
Oh, yeah.
Riley, I got a question for you. Is that your original call, except for the
Yeah.
N?
Yes, it is. My novel
Okay.
KN4ZDH.
Yeah, I figured it was. That K5FLU is my original call too, except for the N.
Uh-huh. Well, I still got the ALS 600 here that you signed the front panel.
Oh man.
Oh, wow.
Man,
That thing
that's
flawlessly for 8 years.
that's great.
You know, a lot of people nowadays, they want these calls with their, hey, half the people I talk to, their calls are their initials, and everybody's changing their call. But, back when we started, it kind of meant something. I mean, I had my license so long, I wanted to keep it. Now,
Yeah.
I wasn't lucky enough to get a KN5 where they dropped the N. I got a WN5 where they changed the N to an A. So I was W5 KUB, and I did take a step here about 10 years ago, and I dropped the A out of it just to make my call a little shorter. But I feel kind of sentimental to keep my call. I mean, I've had this call all these years. You guys have too.
Fine.
When did you get your call, Tom?
I got my novice call in 1964.
Wow. When did you get yours, Riley?
September 2nd, 1960.
Wow.
1960. Man, I got mine just about exactly the same time.
Yeah,
You're
you two
probably
guys.
in my old logbook somewhere, Mark.
You guys are old
I might
timers.
be.
You guys are
I
real
might
old
be.
timers there. Now,
I
hey,
mean, we might have been operating DX40s. Or how about you, Dave? When you get
Yeah,
your
what about
call?
Dave? Dave, how long you been licensed there?
I was licensed in 1975, and my first real radio was a graduation present from college from my folks. It was a Heathkit Hot Water 16.
Cool.
And
Cool radio.
I built that up. I learned to solder on that rig. You could tell about halfway through when the solder joints started to make sense.
Oh,
But it
man.
worked. I love that radio.
Well, hey,
How
while we're asking,
old were you, Dave?
let's get Walter in here now. Walter's relatively new, I think. Let's see, Walter. Now you haven't been a ham since the '60s.
No,
But
I've barely been alive that long.
Is it? Well, yeah. Walter's
Just saying.
He's a young guy right here, Hey, we'd already got our code speed up to 20 words a minute before Walter was born, So you've been licensed how long now?
8 years.
8 years. And are you enjoying ham radio?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I look at all the stuff I've got here. Of course, I've been collecting ham radio stuff for 50 years, and it looks like I got a lot of stuff. But I remember when I was a ham for 8 years, I didn't have a whole lot of stuff, but I had just as much fun.
Exactly. You've seen my station is very modest, as there's not much to it. But it's a lot of fun. I'm just trying to learn building radios, and we play with antennas and build antennas and do that sort of stuff. And I learned an awful lot, especially from Tom, and it's been a lot of fun. Been a good journey.
You can tell Walter's a real ham because he's building a QCX transceiver, which is Morse code only. Real hams are Morse code guys.
And I'll tell you what, I've been watching Wind that last toroid, and it's a doozy. Dave, tell us about your experience wiring that toroid.
Oh, that was something. This is on the QCX radio by QRP Labs, and the last toroid is called T1. He doesn't even call it an L, it's a T, a transformer. It's got 4 windings on it and 8 leads. And if you get one, I guess if you get one out of place, you get 2 out of place. You get some even number out of place.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it took me 3 times to wind that coil, rip it off the board, wind it again. I ended up taking traces off the board and having to wire in little jumpers so I could get the signal to where it should go. But finally it worked.
Dave, you're scaring me. I wonder what I'm up against tomorrow when I power this thing up.
Oh, well,
Besides a lot of smoke.
if I hear an explosion from east to here, I'll know what happened.
Hey, you
Well,
know,
just make sure you wind that T1 right. If you do that, things will be
T1?
okay.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one they're talking about.
yeah, that's the one. That thing's got a lot of turns on it. That thing is full.
Well, it's this one right
It's
here
that
where
one.
my finger
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
That's T1, and that thing has got
it's got a
windings
lot.
galore on it.
The 40 meter has 38 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
Well,
Hey,
I
man, if you
know.
got an 80 meter, you
God.
probably had 96 plus.
It overlaps, and the directions actually say, "Oh, don't worry about it. You just wind over what's already there."
Yeah,
Oh, on the 40 meter, it shouldn't overlap. It
No,
should
no,
be
no, it's
right,
on the
right
6
next.
yeah.
Right,
each other.
correct. You're correct.
You know, I bought one from somebody that was already built, and it wasn't getting much power out of it. And I didn't want to desolder the whole coil, so I just unsoldered one end of one turn because I counted all the turns and they weren't right. And I just took the turns off very carefully by unwinding one coil, one turn while it was still on the board.
Well, I hate to tell
And
you,
I got it to work good.
Walter,
Good.
I
Great
hate to
little
tell you this,
radio.
Walter, but we've got two experts on here right now, and they've had trouble with that call.
That's making me nervous. We're gonna find out
You'll be
tomorrow.
fine.
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll get there.
I may
Do you
come
have-
down here so
do
my
you-
house doesn't burn up.
We'll get there.
Hey,
Oh.
Walter, do you have a scope? An oscilloscope?
No, sir.
I've got one here.
Okay. Well, I mean, if it doesn't work right, that's a really useful tool to signal trace.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'll have to remember that it has some sort. It's got some testing built into it.
It does. I didn't use any of that. I just used the scope.
Yeah, the built-in test equipment just checks for balance between the I and the Q. It doesn't really look at other things. So, when you read the manual, it makes it seem like, oh, we're going to really test this thing from end to end. But primarily, it's looking at the two I and Q channels. This is a very different QRP receiver. It's not a super heterodyne. It's built like a software-defined radio with the I and Q channels in there. But the thing is, it's all analog. It's really a very cool design.
Did you
It's
get the
very
GPS
cool.
unit to go with it? Did you
I'm sorry?
Dave? Did you get the GPS unit that goes with it?
Yes, I did. And it's, although I got that earlier for the Whisper transceiver the transmitter. It's actually a transmitter that QRP Labs puts out. And it's great. When I was at Dayton, I got the little station clock kit from him that uses the same GPS receivers. He used that for all of them.
Okay.
But the thing is so accurate as it is with its crystal. I mean, it's within a couple hertz that I didn't see any reason to also run the GPS with the receiver itself. Although, well, if you want to do that.
All right, so we started off talking about our first rigs, and now we're already at the end of the show talking about this newfangled stuff here. So we're going to have to back up.
Let me
digress
say
just a
one
little bit. We're going to back up a little bit. So
let me say one other thing
Yeah.
about the QCX. I bought one that was already built from somebody, but it didn't work. The Talo detector chip, which is 4 switches, that's pre-installed, if I remember right, on
Yes.
the board. Okay. When I got that board, it didn't work. And what I found was, even though it was pre-installed, 2 of the pins were not soldered onto the chip.
Oh,
And it took-
really?
Yeah, it took me a while, but I finally tracked it down. And when I soldered them in, it worked. Yeah, that chip there.
There's this
And-
one and this one.
There's only two.
One is the
They're
SI
SMDs.
5351 oscillator, and the other is the Talo detector, which is just a switch.
Which one is Which one is IC3? I've been reading on their group that lots of people have trouble with
I
IC3.
think it's that one, right next to
Which
the
one is
toroid in
that?
question.
Yeah.
Is that the Talo detector, the 4 switches? Yeah, it must be. That's a
It
surface
could be.
mount chip.
There's several other ICs on here that you can see.
Well, the
No,
QCX
I'm
is
holding this about an
basically,
inch from the webcam, so
Yeah.
okay, it's the one right next to the toroid.
yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's the one right next to
Okay.
T1.
Okay, the direct conversion concept is that it takes the signal that you're receiving and converts it directly to audio. I mean, that's a great concept. It's not a superhet, and you wouldn't believe the kind of performance that QCX does, especially using that Talo detector, because that Talo detector is actually an RF filter that provides a really high Q. I mean, there's something on the order of like a Q of 5,000.
All right,
So
guys. I'm sorry.
you could operate that thing without even a front end resonant circuit, but the QCX got a single resonant stage.
Here's the back of my board.
Oh man, I see
Where
what
the
you
T1
did.
is. You can see the jumpers and everything because I lifted traces right off of the board.
Hang on. Let's see. There we go. All right, okay, guys. Let's get back on track. We're talking about first rigs, first radios.
First radios,
Now-
hot water 16.
Somehow we got to talk about last radios. Let's go back to first radios. Now, Martin, you had a neat experience. You had a neat experience with your first receiver. Well, Martin, tell us again about your first receiver.
My first receiver was an ILI radio.
No, wait. I was going back. I was going back
Chicago.
further. I'm going
Night
back.
kit.
I'm going back further than that. First receiver.
Oh, well.
It didn't
I
have
mean,
but
if you
about
go
it didn't
way
have but
back,
about
it was
3
a
parts in
crystal
it.
radio and
It didn't have but about 3 parts in it.
whoa, that was way back.
Yeah, we're going way back.
Foxhole radio.
Yeah, we're going way back.
The Foxhole radio with a razor blade and a piece of pencil lead, and that was the pencil lead and razor blade was the crystal detector. And this thing came out of a Cub Scout handbook.
Yeah.
And you use a earphone, one of these old magnetic earphones.
Right.
And it was used to receive the broadcast band radio. Simple Foxhole crystal radios that were used by our soldiers in World War II.
Yeah. Now, just tell us there, but I want to hear how yours worked.
Well, it didn't. That was the problem.
That's what I'm going to get tomorrow.
Oh, man. Are you getting one tomorrow? Oh, no. We don't get back on that subject right now. Okay. So yeah, this is a Foxhole radio. I think many of us back then, we all built them, and to some degree, some success. But, that was kind of neat. You watch and read these stories about prisoners of war. I mean, they would actually make their own earphone. They'd get a bolt and wind some wire around it and put a piece of tin on it, and that was their earphone. I mean, they didn't have parts, to build these radios. Okay, so that was a long time ago. Now since then, your first radio, let's get up to ham radio now. Let's talk ham radio. Dave had a HW16. You had a what?
Oh, well, I didn't have an HW16, but long after that was a pretty incredible radio.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it wasn't a transceiver. It was a transmitter and a receiver in the same box, but it had a crystal filter in it, and it had like a 500 hertz bandwidth on the receiver. It was pretty incredible. I forgot, what did that thing cost back then, Dave? I mean, it was an incredible radio.
I think it was something like $89.95 and another $50 for the VFO that went with it, the HG10B.
Oh man, that was late during the heat kit. You know, that was a novice radio, and
Yes.
it didn't have the 20-meter band on it.
No, it didn't. It was designed for novices. Well, I was a novice, WN7AIU. So
Wow, WN7 AIU. Wow, wow.
I would have become WA7 AIU, but when I upgraded to general, I had moved to California. So I got a 6 call.
You know, I think many hams back then in our era built that heat kit. Those heat kits were very popular radios. They were affordable. And, you know, the HW100 came out. I think that was the first sideband rig that came out, you know, all band sideband rig. They had the other, Martin, they had the single banders, HW12 and the others, right?
Yeah, that was the way we got on single sideband back then.
That was my first sideband rig, and you know I built it, and boy, it had a lot of parts in it, and the tune-up was kind of, it was neat, man. I mean, you know, they gave you the instructions, just you know, tune this coil for a peak, and everything peaked with the meter. You know, it came with the radio and everything. It was cool.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
So let's see now, Riley. You're still with us here. What do you have for your first radio?
I had Seaver was an SX110 Hallicrafters. The transfer was briefly a DX40, but then I got a Johnson Challenger.
Yeah.
But the thing was, I had a vertical that I think it was a Gotham vertical. I know it was $19 or so. I ordered it and coil with it, and I didn't know anything about radials. I just nailed it with rose trellis and clipped on the coil there, and I seemed to work a lot of stations. I had a lot of fun with it until somebody loaned me an SWR meter, and when I saw how bad it was, I never seemed to get out much anymore on that rig.
Well, you know, hey, back then we didn't have SWR meters. I mean, there's one in a handbook. I built one, but that was a type. You know, you had to, you had to adjust it for full scale and then flick to reflected, and then you had to look at the chart and determine.
All I know is that it got very, very hot, and I had to put a little house fan beside it, and the lights in the farmhouse would dim as I set Morse code, which was kind of neat. Probably could have made the light.
Sound like you were running more than 75 watts there as a novice, man.
Hey, Riley, what was the difference between the Challenger and the DX40?
The Challenger, I don't remember, Martin. I don't remember. The Challenger was, I don't know if it had more power. I guess it did. I can't even remember offhand what tubes were in the Challenger, but I kept that thing for years.
Okay.
Seemed to work.
Now I had a DX40, and it could do CW and AM. It was screen grid modulation. Did you use it on voice also, AM, on both of them?
I think I did use the Challenger on AM, and I had one of those night kit VFOs. In fact, I saw Hamfest not too long ago. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in the gray box with the plastic clear through see-through dial with the white line, and that thing seemed to work pretty good. I had to flip several to get on the air, but I know shortly after I got my voice license, I got a Valiant, Johnson Valiant.
Oh man!
And that was wonderful. I always liked those rectifier tubes, the 866As that glowed purple and.
Oh man!
But my dad didn't know a lot about electricity, and he stayed on me all the time about those tubes. I told him they were supposed to glow purple, and he said, "Look, son, I was at Pearl Harbor. I've been around the world twice. I know a little bit more than you do, and nothing electrical is supposed to glow purple. You're just asking. You would never believe that was a normal operation.
Well, hey guys, let me show you. This is what a ham station looked like back in 1964.
Well, there's the VFO. Now that is a Heathkit.
Yeah.
Is that a Heathkit?
VF1.
VF1. Okay.
Yeah.
And the T150.
I had the Night Kit VFO, and later had that Heath VFO.
Yeah. So
the HG10 or the VF1.
Hey, there's that keyer I was talking about. See that little skinny microphone right there? Look right behind that microphone. You see the front panel of that electronic keyer right there.
Martin, I got the HG10 VFO now that I use downstairs with a Drake 2NT transmitter.
Oh man!
Still works.
Man.
Mm-hmm. So my first radio was actually it was actually the Knight T150. My parents bought that for me, and soon after that, I homebrewed some, 6146 transmitters, and out of TV parts and stuff. But my first transmitter was that T150 and that SX140 receiver, which really worked good. Hey, Riley, back then, I don't even know if it's still like this today, but back then in the 60s, you could hold the novice license and you could hold the technician license at the same time. And I'd operate WA5 KUB on 6 meters, and I'd operate WN5 KUB on the novice bands till I upgraded. Yep. But that was a great pair. That radio went through 6 meters. They had a VFO in it, and of course that receiver went through 6 meters.
I never got on 6 meters in those days. I was just on 80 meters CW and 40 CW.
6 meters back in the 60s, it was a neat band. Martin, did you work any 6?
No, never worked any 6. It was either 40 meters, mainly 40 meters.
Yeah. Well,
20 meters back when I was a novice.
I found me some conduit.
I used to use 300 ohm TV twin lead for my transmission line.
Yeah, and hey, now we've got a guy in the chat room. I think he's here tonight, and he asked me last week. I think it's Russ out west, and he asked if you could use that AC cord, that zip cord for feed line, and just split it off at the top and make a doublet out of it. And I said, well, yeah, I think you can. I think Martin has probably used that zip line before, but you definitely have to match it somehow, wouldn't you?
Well, you absolutely can do that. Most people back then, where you split that cord out and it becomes a dipo, you need to tie a knot there, do something there where when you hang it up, it doesn't keep on splitting.
Keep on splitting and getting longer. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Tie a knot.
Yeah. Just tie a knot there. But it works. The only problem is there are lots of losses, especially on the higher bands. Back in the old days, instead of that brown plastic that they use now, it was cloth. And you could still do the same thing. And but you had, you still had to make it so it wouldn't keep splitting like that.
Yeah. Well, Riley was talking about this. He didn't have an SWR meter, and he was making contacts. He didn't know the difference. And same thing when I got on the air. I didn't have an SWR meter. I just threw up a piece of wire and said, make it about this length. And, of course, back then our radios would tune with the Pi network. They would probably tune into those loads pretty good.
Well, you can tune anything with that.
Yeah, so we didn't know any different,
Well, I know John told me that when I told him the Challenger was getting very, very hot, he said, well, if it starts smoking, be careful, because they only put so much smoke in those things at the factory.
Yeah.
I got a question for Riley. On that Gotham, how'd you know where to put that tap? Where to put that alligator clip on that car?
Just kind of went middle of the road, put it in the middle.
Wow.
Was there instructions that told you about where to put it?
I'm sure there were. I don't remember them, but I'm sure there.
Okay.
There was
But what
probably a
Dave was saying
suggested.
was you just tune that Pi network until it starts to work.
Okay, so hey, back then we walked to school. It was uphill both ways. You know, you saw from the equipment here. This was not an easy thing, guys. We had a separate receiver. We had a separate transmitter. We had to make this stuff work. It didn't like the kind of stuff we got today, and but we did have fun with it, and
And you had a bunch of switches to flip. That's what I liked.
yeah.
Well, the
Did you
switches
really
were
have-
real. They weren't buttons. They were real switches.
Wait a minute. Did y'all have real switches back then?
Yeah, I bet you used an alligator clip, didn't you?
That's what I used.
Yeah.
I took an alligator clip and switched it from the receiver and the transmitter, and sometime I forget to do that.
Well, you were. It sounded like you were poorer than I was, Martin. I might have had a knife switch to start out with. You know those big knife switches you lift up and you move over.
Here's the thing. The guy that taught me the code is 96 years old. We have a 40-meter CW schedule every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
Wow.
It's really
That's pretty
fast.
incredible.
I have to work hard to keep up with him.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Man.
But I want. Let me ask you this: I have never heard of anybody, nor has anybody at the league heard of anybody, who was a Morse code operator who got Alzheimer's. Have you guys ever
I don't
heard?
know. I hadn't thought about it. I don't know anybody.
No.
Wondering if maybe there isn't something there. Maybe that's some kind of preventive thing. But I've never known anybody that was a CW operator. And I know a lot of old fellows. I got 3 friends down in South Carolina I'm going to see next month because they're having their 93rd, 97th, and 99th birthday.
I'm gonna have to start brushing up on my code.
Yeah.
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 Operators, all high-speed CW operators.
Yeah, I can still do code. I mean, I got the extra license and I did the 20 words a minute, but you know, hey, my code speed now is probably 13 words a minute. You know, I mean, I've let it slip. But Martin, do you operate CW mobile?
I have done that. You know, I can't, you know, I'm not one of the natural guys, but, you know, I can copy enough where I can carry on a conversation on mobile. I mean, you know, operating mobile, if you try to do it on voice, you got to run pretty good power, at least 20 to 100 watts to get out. But if you operate really low power, then you have to use CW. I mean, I like it. And, you know, I have a little notepad and driving at highway speed and try to write some of that stuff down. And
I've already tried.
they what now?
Hey, there ought to be a law. I wonder if there's a law against working CW while you're driving, man.
There probably should be. If there's not,
Oh boy.
I think there's a lot of the big guys drive the trucks over the road that do that.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, let's
Oh,
talk
man.
about
Let's
let's talk about for a minute. Let's move on in time here. You know, early 70-ish, sideband started to become popular. That's when, you know, things like the HW100 and the 16 and those things started hitting the market. But up until that point, we were all on AM. And I remember sidebanders on 80. It seemed like they were at a certain spot. They were always supposed to stay at this certain spot. You know, kind of how digital is today. And everybody complained about them. They'd call them names and tell them to go up where they're supposed to be. Well, today it's everywhere, man. You know, it's completely.
The AMers would also say that sideband was going to be the end of amateur radio because it didn't even have a carrier and it sounded like a duck.
Oh.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let me tell you.
And it did.
That brings a story just real quick. I'll go back when you said sound like a duck. I talked when I was I guess just got my general, and I was on AM, probably screen grid modulation on 150 watts. There was this guy over in Paducah, Kentucky. This is like 60 years ago. Paducah, Kentucky, and he had one of the loudest signals on, and I think one of the loudest voices in the world. And he would tell you like it is. And I called him one time, and he told me
I remember that guy.
He told me I sounded like a piccolo. Now, that's an old guy talking to a 16-year-old. That's not very good in ham radio, telling me my station sounded like a piccolo. I didn't have 5,000 watts like he had, and plate modulation and all that.
Well, there were guys. I mean, plate modulation was, that was it. That was the thing. And us PO folks were using screen grid modulation, like on the DX40, and we didn't sound very good, but we could work people.
Yeah.
Well, I did plate modulate that T150 in the later years.
Hey, y'all, excuse me just for a minute. I had
Okay.
too many ice cubes. Be right
You
back.
got to get some ice cubes, okay? All right.
No, I had too many of them.
Oh, too many. Oh, I got you. He had too many ice cubes. Let's see if I can get Dave back in here. Where's Dave? Dave's still in here. Oh, yeah. See, Dave stepped away. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Riley, it's just me and you and Walter here.
Okay.
But yeah, I sounded like a Piccadilly, and sideband sounded like ducks. But hey, once we moved to sideband, things started getting a little easier, I think, to make contacts. Don't you think so?
Yeah. I would have to get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to work DX Valley on AM. But when I got the HT37, it was light years ahead, and it was so much easier than DX. That was the state of the art thing when it came out. Now it's not the big It was really enjoyed that.
All right, I tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to take a quick break. I forgot to do this a while ago. I'll be right back. Chasing the grid. Calling all stations. Make sure you grab your Icom gear for the most popular on-the-air event, Field Day, June 23rd and 24th. Let Icom help you to make the most contacts or practice for emergency situations. The SDR every ham wants, the IC7610, is here just in time for Field Day. This high-performance RMDR has the ability to pick out the faintest of signals even in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. The new Icom IC7610 is a direct sampling software-defined radio that will be changing the world's definition of an SDR transceiver. It has RF direct sampling, 110 dB RMDR, an independent dual receiver, and dual digi-select. Don't forget to bring along the perfect field day companion, the IC7300. It's ideal for the ham on the go. It's a high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design. It too has RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and an SD memory card slot. Check out the IC9100. The sky's no limit for this all-in-one HF, VHF, UHF rig. No matter if you're working DXQSO, RTTY, D-Star, satellite, or even moon bounce, Icom's years of experience is working along with you. The 991 has independent dual receivers, satellite mode, built-in antenna tuner, and a digital IF filter. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on Icom radios. All right, guys, we're back. We're back live right here with Riley, Dave, and Martin. What were we talking about? Let's see. We were talking about
Sideband and AM.
sideband. Yeah, sideband made things easier, didn't it? To make contacts, man. You didn't need as much power anymore.
The HT37 sure easy to tune up, and it had that built-in relay to switch the antenna. You didn't have to have switches to do that, and you tuned. It was very easy to tune up.
Yeah. Hey, did you ever have any experience with, I got my hands on a Central Electronics, I think it was a 10B. Well, they had somehow they did some type of conversion and made that kind of one of the first sideband rigs. You remember that, Riley?
I remember seeing them. I always wanted one, but I never did.
Yeah, it had a little I-tube in it. I don't remember a whole lot about it. It had an I-tube in it, but it used, I don't know, was it like an ARC-5, a military transmitter? I think it used that for the VFO or something, and it actually had a little box and a little cover that fit over that ARC-5 to make it look just like the Central Electronics stuff.
I didn't know that.
No, you're right. It was that. That was the VFO.
Yeah.
And it was a phasing rig, just like the QCX. And it didn't have crystals in there to get rid of one of the sidebands. Just balanced it out.
Yeah, well, it seemed a little complicated to use, so I don't think I think I had it borrowed, so I didn't really make many contacts on it.
Excuse, I'm going to switch to a different pair of earphones.
Go right ahead.
My battery's going to go out.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Well, let's get Dave in here. Dave, what's your experience, man? Did you like it when sideband came around?
Well, by the time I got my general, sideband was pretty well established.
Okay.
That was in about 1976 or so. And my first radio was a Yaesu Fox Tango 201. It was like the 101, except it didn't have 160 meters, which didn't matter because I didn't even have an 80-meter antenna. I had a 40-meter antenna. But I think I missed most of the controversy. I remember reading about the controversy and how there were still some people kind of sore about it, but I think people kind of figured out that single sideband was here to stay. I mean, it was, what, 8 times more efficient with power, something like that?
Yeah, always told it was 8 times.
Yeah.
Hey, hey guys, let's do this. I forgot to do this. I'm going to put the phone number up. Let's just see if anybody wants to just come in and say hi and say hi to you guys, Dave or Martin or Riley. Let me throw the phone number up here.
Well, there's a question for Riley. If we can just give him an impromptu question here.
What do you
Well,
got?
someone would like if you could discuss the power company's obligation concerning power line noise.
Well, it all relates to Part 15 of the rules, and if they are causing interference beyond a certain limit, beyond a certain geographic limit, so many feet, whatever, then they have an obligation to fix it. And the way the cases work with the FCC is if you have a power line interference complaint, you go first to the power company, of course, and you document that, and you get in their system. And if you can't get anywhere with them, then you file a complaint with the American Radio Relay League, with Mike Gruber or Ed Hare. And they take first cut at handling that with the power company. This is before you even have to go to the FCC. Hopefully you won't. They have a 90% solution rate with the power company, because they've established good rapport with a lot of the power companies over the years. And in fact, I'm on an IEEE committee right now that's working with the power companies and the league and others to set up some standards under the IEEE standards that a power company is supposed to follow when running these things down. But they do have certain obligations in there, and the commission will take over if the league cannot. Yeah, if the league cannot solve that problem with the power line. And of course, the power lines, the power companies, the older companies usually have a couple of people that's done that type of thing for years, and they're very, very proud of being able to solve it. But then a lot of the power companies have been bought and sold numerous times, and the old people have retired, and they have people on there who know nothing about it. They have people on there. But the cost of all the equipment the power company needs to find an RFI problem is less than 2 men in a bucket truck for 2 days. Mm-hmm. And so, if they will listen to the league, and the league can help them find ways to find it. If they will listen, it's not that hard to. not that hard to solve. But there's good stories and there's horror stories with people
Well,
dealing with that.
That's cool. You're working with the
Yeah.
IEEE. Riley, are you a member of the IEEE, or are you just working with them?
I'm on this committee.
Okay. Hey, Martin and Dave, are you guys a member of the IEEE?
I'm a life member.
Oh, cool. Martin, did you ever? Now, Martin is the engineer, man. Martin, did you ever join the IEEE?
Well, I did join, but I'm not a member anymore.
Okay.
I didn't renew my membership only because I forgot to pay the dues.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I'm actually a member. I'm a senior member of the IEEE myself. So look at here. We got everybody here tonight is with the IEEE. Hey, we had somebody. I don't know if we've lost them.
Somebody was on the phone.
Somebody,
Are you
had
still there,
called
caller?
in. Is the caller still there? Caller?
I'm here.
Caller, are you there?
Yeah. This is Mark.
Who's on the phone?
Yeah, KE7WA, Mark in South Carolina. I have a story for you.
KE7WA.
Mark in South Carolina.
Mark. Hey, Mark. You speak up a little bit, Mark. You're a little weak.
Oh, okay. I mean, is this a little better?
Oh, a little bit.
Okay. I was raised in South Central Kentucky, and I've got a real old story there for you. My Elmer was W4NGZ out of Auburn, Kentucky, and Riley will appreciate this because are you listening? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, well, Riley will appreciate this. My uncle built off of his own equipment, and this was back in the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. And I used to go visit him, and the story was told that the FCC came to visit him one day, a couple of men from the FCC, and they asked to see his equipment, and he said, sure, come on in, I want to show it to you. And they said, well, do you realize that you're cutting off WSM out of Nashville, Channel 5, when you key up? And he said, no, he didn't have any idea. At the time, it was told he was running more watts than WSM out of Nashville. He ran ran a lot of traffic out of Louisville for the flood in the 40s. Stayed up all night and ran a lot of traffic for the flood up there. But I just want to let you know that it was very interesting, and they gave him some quiet hours so he wouldn't operate on Saturday night, knock WSM off the air. So that's
But
it.
they did give me some quiet hours.
That's a great story. Hey, you know, we were talking to CW a little bit there, and kind of going back during World War II. The FCC stopped all hams from operating in the country during World War II, and we had somebody on a show here a couple of years ago. Raleigh, I don't know if you are aware of this, but those guys, they stayed active on CW. I think they were in like Detroit or Chicago. I think they were Chicago. They stayed active, and all the hams in Chicago were talking to each other on CW, but they were somehow running it through the power lines. Have you ever heard a story like that?
No, I haven't.
They were actually connecting on and sending CW to each other through the power lines.
That was called controlled carrier.
Is that right?
Yeah, they did that over the power line.
Yeah.
Because, like you were saying, they couldn't operate ham radio over the air. So, they did it themselves. The college radio stations used to do that too.
Yeah.
It all went over the power lines.
Who's on the phone?
Hello, this must be Tom.
Yes.
This is Russ from
Hey, Russ.
Dubuque, Iowa. KG0BK.
All right, KG0BK.
Yes.
Now, Riley, I'm gonna have to tell you this first. I mean, we keep everything straight and level on the show here. Russ was a pirate back in his young teenage days, and with a pirate radio station in his city, and he only got shut down after they started selling advertisements on it. What do you think about that, Riley?
Yeah, I've heard a couple of stories. that, I know the FCC went in on one pirate station, and the mayor was, or the city was being interviewed. I don't remember where that was, but there's some great stories on the pirates.
So go ahead, Russ. I'm sorry, Russ. I'm sorry I had to tell on you.
You know what, Tom? I'm gonna quit calling you. I've got a couple of comments and a question. One for Martin. MFJ is unbelievable. I can't believe how you can do a no matter what warranty. And I've seen that happen. I haven't had to use it myself, but my son has. And he's just bragging about it, and it's unbelievable. Don't know how you can do that, but you've got some good stuff there. And speaking of my son, we got to get Dave in there then. I told him that he'd help me with my antenna. I was wondering about coax or ladder light or something, and Dave says, go ahead and do the ladder light all the way in. I said, all the way in, not like a G5RB. He said, no, try it all the way in and see what happens. Every location's different. I did, and it worked like a charm. And he said, so you talked to Dave Kassler? I said, yeah. So the other thing was, Tom, I had one problem tonight. I couldn't get into the chat room. With the new site, it says the chat room is not available. So if you could give me some help on that.
I don't know what that is. Everybody else is getting in tonight, so it must be just something kind of freaky happening at your end. Maybe a different browser or maybe a reboot might fix it. There should be nothing.
I
should be
didn't
nothing.
think about the reboot thing. That might, because I've always got in there before, but tonight I couldn't. And I know you've changed your servers or something.
I don't know of anything we've changed in the past couple of years, but did you try to log in with a password or just your call?
I just gave my call. I
Okay.
never had a password before. But
That's fine. You don't need a
I'll
password.
just try it out again.
Yeah.
But anyway, show's been great tonight. SSB, by the way, when it first came out in the 60s, I thought, well, I didn't have anything that would pick it up. And I go, what is this thing? That's not Daffy Duck. That's not Donald Duck. That's not, they're not even talking. What's their problem? And so I did build a little sideband, or a VFO, basically, using the 455 transformer out of an old transistor radio, and built an oscillator to where I could beat the frequency. And I go, wait a minute, you can't hear these guys. Wonder how they're doing that. So that's all I've got tonight, Tom.
Okay. Well, hey, Russ, thanks for calling, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, Russ,
Well,
I appreciate everything.
Certainly welcome. But, we were on AM, by the way, when we were doing Pirate. We didn't do that sideband stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. The statute of
Thanks, Tom,
limitations,
for
I'm
having
sure,
me.
has run
You
out.
take care, and 7-3 stay, everyone.
All right. Send me through, Russ. All right.
Hey, Tom, I'm going to have to sign out
Okay.
here and make a phone call. It's good talking to you guys tonight.
Yeah. Okay, Raleigh, thanks for coming on here again tonight with us. And, hey, you're one of us on the show, so any Tuesday night you can join the show here, okay? We kind of
Thanks, Riley. Good night.
expect you. We kind of expect you at
Riley.
least a couple times a month,
Okay.
Hey, Riley, it was good seeing you, and I hope
Martin.
at the Hamfest when we're all together, let's go out and have a W5 KUB dinner, and it's going to all be all on me.
Okay, that's
Oh,
the deal.
okay. I'll head up for that, man. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Martin. Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Dave.
All right. We'll see you, Riley.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye.
Thanks. All right. Cool. Well, let me see if I can get. Let's see if we can get Raleigh off here. I think Dave may have already dropped off too.
Oh, okay.
Well, back, the sideband was not liked very much when sideband came out. Boy, it was some bad talk. They called it. I remember Martin. They called it a slop bucket. That had some bad meaning, man.
Any time something new like that comes up, it's always the same thing. Lots of
Yeah.
resistance in it.
Oh, yeah.
I got a fresh set of batteries right here. What I
Okay.
was using were my iPhone iPods, and those batteries don't last long. These batteries and these earphones last longer, but they already been used, so I don't know how long I got on them.
Well, they'll probably do all right here. Okay. All right. So, hey, we done moved into Sideband. We talked about the Heath kits. They were great kits to build, and they worked really well. And, you know, to me, the Heath kit to me, and I may be wrong, but it was kind of a copy of the Collins KWM2A. You know, that was, well, when I was in the military, that was the radio to have, man, the Collins KWM2A. Single sideband, you know, the VFO there in the middle and everything. And of course, the Heath kit come out, it kind of looked like it. I mean, the knobs were kind of in the same place, and it did the same things.
I think you were right. I mean, you know, that was the poor man's Collins. You know, why don't we ask some of your viewers to call in and tell us about their first station, you know, when they got their novice license or their first license and first station, and just tell us about it. Tell us about what transmitter they were using, and what receiver and what antenna they were using. You know, all of us, that's probably our most memorable part of ham radio, when we first got on and their first contact and how they felt about it. You know, just call in, tell us about it. You don't be shy.
Yeah,
just talk.
all right.
You know,
so if
we're
you're listening,
regular hams here.
If you're listening or watching, call us to 901-286-1116 and tell us about your experience and your first radio. We need a call. Let's see. We need a call. We're going to take the third caller? No, we'll take the first caller.
Just the first one, yeah. Any caller.
We'll take any caller right now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, don't be scared or anything. We've had so many ice keys that don't matter anyhow.
That's
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Okay, no caller yet. Well, you know, I was lucky growing up. I had parts available, and
there you go.
And I guess hams gave me coax, and I probably had coax that came from World War I. It was probably old when I got it. I think I still got some of it. I bet you some of the coax I've got out here is over 100 years old, you know. And, you know, I can probably afford new stuff now, so I probably need to get rid of that stuff. But, you know, us hams, we don't like to throw anything away. Who's on the phone?
Hey, Tom, this is Bill, WZ1L.
Bill. Hey, Bill.
Bill, how are you?
WZ1L.
Hey, Bill.
What's going on?
Good evening to you, Walter, and Martin, and Tom. Here the show this evening.
Hey, Bill.
Bill,
you
I'm
gonna
one of
come
those
back
people there that got bitten by the ham radio bug later in life. It was 1978 when I was assigned to an oceanographic research ship doing surveys to the approaches of the Suez Canal for the Egyptian government in a Navy status. But we had a Collins KWM2 Alpha that we used in the evening for phone calls to the Navy Mars system. And that more or less, I enjoyed that. And the executive officer, he was KB7CK, and he lived in Utah. And so he gave me a Wayne Green tape and a Mako book and told me to head down to my bunk and start reading. So that was that was a little bit. And then,
that's what you got you started, huh?
I got orders off of that. I got orders off of that and went to Midway Island. So I stopped in Oakland and I got a Tune in the World book, and I still had the tape there from Wayne Green, and I studied. I tried my novice twice in Honolulu, and I didn't make it. So I waited and came back, and so then in January of 1981, I took my exam via what was it, N2. Yeah, N2KC. He was a extra class, just arrived from Diego Garcia, and so I passed that. And so Martin wants to know about the first radio stations. Well, on Midway we had a Swan 350. That's basically what I used until I got transferred back stateside. And when I got to Washington D.C., I met this nice lady that sold me a Drake TR4 Beeline that I just looked at it and I said, oh my God, and she says it's very easy, and she showed me how to tune it up and whatever, and I thought that was cool, and I took off and blew a piece of wire off the balcony of the place where I lived, and I was doing CW. So basically, that was my first station, and that was what,
Wow.
Well, that's cool.
1981.
I bet
Is this
you.
the same Bill that
Yeah.
came and ate with us at Obi's?
Yeah, that's the same.
Mark?
That's him.
That's him. That's
Hey,
our
man.
Obi friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you
Well,
what.
I mean, I upgraded. I got a what was it? A Kenwood 520, and then Yaesu 757. So I mean, basically, I just been following as the new stuff comes out, just upgrading. So, and kind of trying everything that I can and staying up with Avi. So, thank you for letting me call in,
Yeah.
and hope to see y'all soon.
All right. We'll see.
Do you
Thanks,
still
Bill.
operate CW, Bill?
Thanks, Bill. Good night.
Yep. Good night.
All right. All right. 901-286-1116. Give us a call. Martin wants to know what kind of radio you hit. Martin, when I made my very first contact on CW, I think I cried. I mean, it was terrible, man. I didn't copy a thing the guy said.
All of us was like that. But I have a question, though, for your viewers. Has anybody out there, did any of y'all have a regenerative receiver when you made your first contact? I mean, that was a pretty primitive receiver, and that was the receiver that I had when I was trying to make my first contact. I couldn't make a contact with that. And if anybody out there had and used a regenerative receiver to make that their first contract, I would be very, very impressed to listen to them and hear them talking about that.
All right. Who's on the phone?
This is Roy, KI7PKL out in Portland.
KI7. Hey, Roy. I
Roy.
know who you are, Roy, but I didn't get all your call. KI7.
PKL, Papa Kilo Lima.
Papa Kilo PKL. Okay. Hey, now, Martin, Roy is a guitar player. I have to tell a little story. I have to tell a little story about everybody on here, Now, Russ was the pirate. Now, Roy here, he's been on our show and he's played the guitar before.
Wow. Guitar, not guitar.
That's right, man.
There you go, yeah. I'm actually a bass player and a drummer, and yeah. Anyway, we don't talk about that. But anyway, my first radio, it always brings tears to my eyes when I think about this stuff. It's just magic thinking back on it. In 1970, my Elmer W7 Charlie Papa Kilo brought over this old Holocrafters general coverage radio that could do the ham bands and, receive sideband and CW and so forth. And I had it for about a week, and I played with that thing day and night. I was in school. I was 14. I had to go to school, but, I'd be down there at 4 in the morning, because what's it sound like in the morning when you get all this Asian stuff come, Oh, it was awesome. And I had to give it back, unfortunately, and then I got this realistic DX150A, which was solid state, but it was, pretty basic, and a Knight T50, and I saw a Knight T50 on Martin's shelf one time when he was showing us his radios, and I had that same exact transmitter, 7165, 7193, and a couple others.
Hey, Martin's got the 1950. He's got the 150 there. He's got my old receiver, the SX140. I don't have any of my old stuff. Martin's got it. He's the collector.
Yeah, I don't have any of my old stuff either. It all went away. I wasn't even around, and when you move out of your parents' house, stuff happens after a time.
Yeah. Cool.
Man, Roy, you're a real ham, man.
I sure had a lot of fun working CW back in the day with my straight key and my those were nasty headphones that I had, too. Nasty headphones. Boy, my ears hurt.
Let me tell you, boy, it was magic. It was magic back then. You fire one of those big old receivers up that had like 15 tubes in it, and they glowed, and you could smell the dust getting hot in there when you cranked it up, and you turn that dial, and boy, I'd listen to Radio Moscow, I'd listen to Radio Havana, Cuba, and things like that. In fact, at one point, you know what, my ham license almost messed me up, because at one point in the Air Force, I had a top secret crypto security clearance. At one point they pulled my clearance away, because they had heard I had talked to or listened to these places, and they had to go back and double check with all my neighbors again. And then, of course, they came back and gave me my clearance back. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I haven't set my chat picture in yet is because it used to be back in the day. Later on, I had this Drake R4 and a great big Hallicrafters transmitter. And back in the day, it didn't take very many radios to make a good picture of your shack. But now the radios are so little, you need a lot more radios and gear. So I'm slowly collecting stuff. So at some point, I'm going to send you a picture. But at first, it was just too pathetic. Just my little FD891 and my HT. I couldn't send a picture like that.
Hey, nowadays, the little radio has as much packed into it as all that big stuff we used to have.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, it even works 6 meters. Yeah, it just takes more of them to make a good picture, though. So I'm collecting things slowly. I got my MFJ remote coax switch sitting there, and a couple other things going. So.
All right.
Anyway,
hey, Roy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roy, for calling. And I don't know if we'll do a hangout tonight or not. Appreciate you calling, man. Always good to talk to you.
Very cool. Well, thank you. I always enjoy the show. Thanks a bunch.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Roy. Good night.
All right,
Thanks
901.
for calling, Roy.
All right, we're on a roll here. 901-286-1116. Give us a call. Yeah, that was magic back then, Martin. Get a receiver and tune in those shortwave stations and hear all that foreign stuff. I mean, back then that was something. No internet back then, no nothing. No satellite. That was something.
No, you used a little telegraph key like a J38 that you used to buy from B.A. Bernstein Appleby in Kansas City, 25 cents, and TV twin lead for your transmission line, and copper whale wire that you could buy from Bernstein Appleby, and the 807 tubes. And the version that you could buy for 25 cents a piece was the 1625.
No, they were 12 volt.
12 volt
filament, yeah. Same
and
tube.
You could build a transmitter for it and any kind of receiver. You could talk to somebody all over the world with a telegraph key. I never was, or still is, very good at CW, but I could, do a conversation, but you're right, it was magic. It was unbelievable.
My parents were so good to me. They bought me, a receiver and a transmitter and all that. But I got my license and started making contacts. And my dad looked at me and says, "Code? That's all you do is code. I mean, what good is that?" But look what it led to. It led to better license. It led to upgrades. It led to a lot of things, man. Learning,
Well, our parents always helped us out. I mean, yours and mine and Walter, they gave me the freedom and the time and, we were always working in a grocery store, and they probably would have been better off buying more stuff that we could sell to our customers, but they, they gave me the freedom to do
Oh,
that.
yeah. And you know what? They gave you,
and that's what America's all about.
and they gave you a shack, didn't they? Upstairs in the rafters.
Absolutely. I could go upstairs to the attic, and there was like 2 boards there in the attic that I can just kind of walk through, and I used to door or a piece of plywood and some stuff off of a pallet to make myself a table where I could put my rig on. And back then we didn't have air conditioning, but we had this big attic fan.
Yeah.
And this is outlet for the attic fan was where I could run my 300-ohm twin lead up to my transmitter, so I could transmit. And I had an antenna that was kind of stapled or tacked to the eaves. But it worked. I got out. And I could
for
talk
those
to people.
Martin, for those people that haven't heard the story, your ham shack was up in the attic, and there was no floor. You were on top of the rafters, man. And I bet you in the South, boy, I tell you, it's hot up there. You're a true ham. Who's on the telephone?
Yeah, this is Jim, WA4DAW.
Hey, DAW, Jim. Hey, Martin, now I'm going to tell you a story about Jim here.
Okay.
I got to tell stories about everybody. Jim here I met down at the MFJ 45th anniversary. And
Wow.
He was there with his beautiful wife celebrating their anniversary, and I forget how many years. Jim, how many years was
50.
it? 50?
50 years.
50-year anniversary. And you know what? She bought him, for his anniversary present, she bought him an AL811B amplifier there.
Wow.
And I talked to Jim some afternoons here, and he's got a pretty good signal coming in from South Carolina.
Wow.
Hey,
Jim,
go ahead,
did
Jim.
I get a chance to meet you?
Pardon?
Jim, did I get a chance to meet you at our open house?
Yes, you did. As a matter of fact, we had a chance to talk for a little while, and also met Richard and the rest of the gang there. And
Wow.
I've got a house full of equipment from MFJ here.
Wow, I appreciate that.
So,
you come on,
so good,
you come on
good
and
stuff.
visit with us anytime you want to. We'll roll the red carpet out for you.
Hey, I really appreciate that. You guys were so good to us while we were there. I wanted to call in and tell you guys about the first station I had. There was an article about 1968 in the Electronics Illustrated magazine called Bare Essentials Transmitter. I don't know if any of you remember that or not, but that particular thing was a 50C5, and it was right off the line. It didn't use a transformer or anything, had a voltage doubler, and crystal controlled oscillator, gave me about 4 watts out. So that was my first transmitter.
Well, you could build that out of just an old junk AC/DC radio you got your hands on, couldn't you?
You sure could.
Yeah.
And the only expense I really had was the crystal.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
That's
how
cool.
much power could you get out of a 50C5?
A 50C5 will give you about 4 watts. It's the best I could
Wow.
ever get out of it. It would run 80 and 40 meters.
Did you make sure you plugged the power cord in the right way?
Yeah, you had to. Well, the article had a neon lamp and like a 470K ohm resistor off one side, which should have been the ground side, and you actually grounded that to a water pipe so that if you plugged it in wrong, it would light up. So you reverse the plug just for safety.
Now the
Yeah.
voltage doubler, was that diodes or another vacuum tube like a 35W4?
No, it used diodes. It
Okay.
used the I forget which diodes it was now, but at that time I'm not even sure they had 1,000-volt diodes
Yeah.
like they do now. These little
Okay.
Well, diodes weren't that.
1.5 or 2 amp diodes.
Yeah.
Now I understand 50C5
Yeah.
with diodes with voltage doubler, and the 50C5 was your crystal power oscillator. That's great.
That's it.
I mean, 4 watts. That was QRP back then.
Yeah.
It was, but I made a lot of contacts with that little rig.
Wow. What band was that on?
I used it primarily on 40, but it would run on 80. You had a coil that you could wind for 40 or 80, and I wound the 40-meter coil, and then later on I put it on 80.
Wow. Well, let's tell the other people what a 50C5 was. The 50C5 was the audio output tube in a All-American 5 AC/DC radio that was very, very popular. All the AM radios were built back in the 50s and 60s. It was one of those all-glass miniature radio tubes, audio output stage.
Every radio had the very same tubes in it, the 50C5 and the 35W4 rectifier, and then they had 3 more 12-volt tubes. I don't remember what they were.
12B6, 12BA6, and a 12AV6.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. That was it.
And the 50, what that meant was 50 volts on the filament. And
Right.
I'm sure you must have had a resistor that dropped the rest of the voltage from the AC line. So what was left was 50 volts on the filaments.
That's right. It had a 400 ohm, 20-watt resistor in series.
And that was real ham radio back then. Man, that was great. I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know what I was using to start with, and kind of graduated up from there.
Well, that's cool.
And I want to say thank you for letting me on, and you guys have a good evening. I'm going to get out of here because it's getting late on the East Coast.
All right, and hey, let's just another plug for your new shack. Boy, he's putting down new flooring and he's remodeling his shack. How's that going?
Wow.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
Hey, you're
and,
a real
hope to see
ham.
you
I appreciate
next
you,
time we have an event. We can all get together.
Hey, why don't you come down to the Huntsville Ham Fest? Martin will probably be there.
I would love to, but I'm going to be. I've got another commitment I can't get out of.
That's right.
I was planning to, but the timing just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.
Very good. Thanks.
Right.
Good night.
Okay,
Bye
thanks. Bye.
All right. Russ is saying it was a 35Z5. Now, I remember, though, in the radios we're talking about, Martin, they were 35W4s. Was it 35Z5? Was that the octal? Was that the octal tube? You can go ahead and get it. Yeah, that was the octal tube. That was
the 50C5.
That was the little glass tube, the 7-pin glass tube.
Hello.
Yeah.
Who we got on the phone?
This is Larry Carbo out here in Hansville, Washington, N7LUF.
N7LUS?
Yeah, November 7, Lima Uniform Foxtrot.
Hey, Larry, and I think you said you're in Washington?
Right.
Oh, how you doing?
All right.
Hey, Larry.
Well, I'm trying to mute my TV here, and
That's okay.
not doing it very well.
Oh, that's all right.
Let me see here.
It's pretty low in the background, unless it's bothering you. We can hear you okay.
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
Oh. That's correct. Yeah, out here in Hansville, Washington.
Oh, you know.
Yeah, you in Washington State?
Yeah, Washington State. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you, Larry.
Yeah, this is my first time on here, so I haven't done it before. But talking about old receivers. When I was a baby, growing up, my dad had all these receivers and never could get the amateur radio and master the codes. So kind of got a mental block. He told me I couldn't master the code either. So it wasn't until
Shortwave in Holland.
Yeah, it wasn't until in the 86 before I got licensed. So.
Oh, you're an old timer.
Yeah, so I still got a lot of the old receivers and stuff. Built my first CW transmitter back in the actually 1960, but I could just never master code.
Hey, let me. Hey, I want to ask again. If you're listening or watching, I'd like to know how many new people we have on the show tonight. If this is your first time to find out about the show and join us, let us know in the chat room. Just say, hey, this is my first time or whatever. So,
well, I had back
hey,
surgery, and I have no way of getting to the chat room right now, so I don't have my tablet. But I have been in there, and I followed you when you was back there in Dayton.
Okay, that's cool. Cool. Hey, Martin, I just saw a comment in the chat room here. They're listening to us on shortwave in Holland right now.
Wow.
They said it's a good signal in Holland.
Wow, that's impressive.
So, Larry, you still having fun with ham radio after all these years?
I am, but lately I've been doing FT8. Just got back into it. There was a while that I wasn't doing anything, but the digital modes mainly because I have a lot of dogs. I got 6 dogs, and they like to make a lot of barking, so it makes it a little difficult to being on the air. But I get in and check into a net and just got back active in a local club.
What kind of radio are you using?
I have a Kenwood TS950. My first transceiver was an Icom. I think it was something like a 7, I don't remember the number, about 750 or something like that. But,
okay, how about your antenna? What are you using now?
Right now I'm using the Kenwood TS950.
No, I meant antenna.
Oh, the antenna? I have an old lightning bolt, which is a 5-band 4-element cubicle quad sitting about 60
wow.
feet. But I have nothing for my... well, I started stretching out a 160-meter dipole, but ladder line. But with my bad back, I just had surgery on it. Haven't been able to get out there and tune it up.
Well, you're a real ham. I mean, there's people like us that get on the radio and use, ordinary things and what we got and just enjoy ham radio.
I think that's how they made that show MacGyver. That's how we as hams used to be back then.
Yeah.
You'd find a piece of plastic or I don't know if we had plastic back then. You find a piece of glass or something. Hey, man, you make an insulator out of it.
Yeah, well, you talked about the old crystal radios there. I built mine. It wasn't out of the Scout manual. I don't remember where I got it, but I took an old toilet paper roll and wrote around and used the pencil lead, and that was my first receiver.
Wow, I'm impressed. You've been listening the whole time on this show tonight.
Oh yeah. Well, I've listened before, but this is the first time actually on the air or making a phone call in.
Well, you need to make that a regular thing. Just call in and just talk to us.
Well, I'll try to do that here in the future. Yeah, it's been an interesting show, and I listened to the other show there on Wednesday nights, and I got a lot of good friends with them. But just recently, started watching and getting involved watching this show here, and so.
Well, that's cool. That's our friend Bob Heil on Ham Nation on Wednesday nights.
Yeah. So Don, I used to live in Louisiana. That was where I was first licensed, and good amateurs down there, and they're the ones that got me over the hump and got me the code, and eventually get up to 13, and I was up to 18 words per minute. And I was going to go for the extra, and then they dropped the code, and I said, "Oh well." So I'm an advanced class,
impressive.
so I haven't got any further.
Do you operate code?
No, not anymore. Mainly it's just digital.
Well, try it sometime. most of the guys on the code, you say QRS. I do that all the time. Slow down, man.
Yeah.
And they will. I mean, those guys on code are gentlemen, and they take care of you. They understand.
Martin, the main thing back then, you didn't have to know a whole lot on code. QTH is, name is, your RST is, and you repeat everything 2 times, and man, that's your contact. But then we would rag chew, as a novice, we made friends with people around the state, other people our same age, and we actually talked about things.
I was always told to make a little cheat sheets, get everything put out what you want to say and have it laid out in front of you. And it's kind of like having micros with the digital.
Just be yourself. Just say whatever you want to.
Well, Larry,
we're all just...
Larry, I didn't get to introduce you with any things like criminal records or traffic stops or any. I've been trying to introduce everybody that I know, in some way, but I didn't have anything to say about you tonight.
Oh. Well, I got a QRZ page.
Okay, I'll look it up tonight. Well, guys,
I'll let you, maybe somebody else wanting to get in there, and I'll look forward to making another call here in the future.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Larry, for calling.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. I appreciate you calling.
All right. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll leave the phone line open for one more call, because it's getting late here. We've gone over. We're not going to do Hangout tonight, but we'll take one more call here, and let's see. Hey, field day announcement. If you're going to do a field day, try to get me some video. Get me a 3 or 4 minute video about field day. Get in touch with me soon after field day, and we'll try to get that on the show the next week. So that's one thing we need to do. Also, we have a net every Tuesday night right before the show from 5:30 to 7 p.m. It's on 7180. And we had about 25 check-ins tonight. The band was really, really bad tonight, but we had 25 check-ins tonight. And we're getting quite a few check-ins on the phone tonight. I wonder if I can count those. I'll probably add those on there.
Hey,
so let's do that.
Tom?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes?
going to take my headphones off and make another ice cube run.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay? I'll be right
I
back.
tell you what,
okay?
hey, Martin, we'll just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and end the show. And we'll have you on next week.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Martin. Good to see you.
Okay, we'll see you.
All right. So let's see. What do I try to pull a ending on the show here? We're way past where we should have been anyway, even with Hangout. So. It's bedtime on the East Coast. It's almost bedtime here. And guys, I don't see any other calls coming in. I want to say 73 to everybody. Thanks a lot. Join our net next week, 7180 from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. Send us a field day picture. Join us at the Huntsville Hamfest, August 18th and the 19th. And hopefully if you're a first-time watcher, we appreciate it and thank you for joining us tonight. Tell your friends about it. And let's see. That should be it. So, guys, I'm gonna take the phone line off, and we're gonna turn things off here.
7-3, guys. Good night.
7-3s, everybody.
Enjoy field day.
All right. Let's see. We'll run the cat real quick. Let's see.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.